I am knowledge transfer specialist in CMHC's BC region. I want to set the expectation today that the presentation about the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program is a new program, and it's very different from CMHC's traditional business because it's not about housing, and it's specifically geared for commercial property owners and the landlords with small business tenants. I'll do my best to give you an overview about this program. In the meantime, if you have any, I will do the presentation for approximately 15 minutes, and then we can open the floor maybe for questions or any clarifications you may seek on the program. But in the meantime, I know you you host your regular roundtables, and please do send us or send me the questions that you think of after this presentation or later on, because the application is open till August 31st, so you do have time to go through the process. So contact me, even if I don't have the answer myself, I will work with the core team of CECRA to get the answer to you. So I'm going to share my screen about the CECRA presentation. And please let me know if you can see the slide. Okay, I'm going to make it full screen. Okay, that's good. I see the thumbs up from Allison. Thank you very much. So as you are all aware, the Government of Canada has announced and launched the CECRA for small businesses. And this program has been highly anticipated by the commercial sector. And the program is already intaking applications. It commenced on May 25th. The key objective for CECRA is to help support small commercial tenants experiencing financial hardship due to COVID-19. The program supports property owners in providing rent reductions to their impacted small commercial tenants while continuing to meet their operational obligations. And I really wanted to thank Alison and Barb for the polls before the presentation started, because it's good to know who are at the meeting today. How we define commercial property, that includes offices, retail spaces, restaurants, and the industrial use businesses. And CECRA is in the form of a forgivable loan provided to qualified commercial property owners. And property owners are required to set up rental forgiveness. See, here it uses the term rental forgiveness arrangements with their small business tenants, but essentially it means a rent reduction arrangement with their tenants, in addition to meeting other requirements, which we will cover later in this presentation. One application per property for the entire period of April, May, and June 2020. The deadline for applications is August 31st, 2020. Currently, this is the deadline, but the program may be extended if required. The rent payment breakdown is relatively straightforward. So in a nutshell, the program is threefold, where all parties, including the property owner, the tenant, and all levels of government, that's including federal, provincial government, or territorial government, the three parties are taking on a shared role in providing rent relief to support impacted businesses. So first off, the property owner is expected to cover 25% of the gross rent for the 3 month period noted. And second, the government funding will be capped at 50% of the monthly rent payments. The program costs will be shared 75-25 split between the federal and the provincial or federal and the territorial government on the basis set out in their agreements. And the third, the small commercial tenants is still expected to pay up to or no more than 25% of the required rents for this period. So in total, the CECRA program provides the small commercial tenants with 75% rent relief during this 3 months time frame. So as a recap, the property owner covers 25% of the rents, the tenants 25%, and the government covers 50%, which is cost shared with the provinces and the territories. The CECRA program is administered for CMHC or on behalf of CMHC by a third party. The third party is MCAP. So they are responsible for the creation of an online application portal, which is customized specifically for the CECRA program. So the application intake and assessment adjudication of the applications will be done via the portal. MCAP is also providing technical support during the application process. So one example is if someone has problems with logging into the portal and accessing to applications, MCAP is there to address these issues. What is CMHC's role? So we have the responsibility to provide the information or disseminate the program information to the commercial sector. So while MCAP has already a responsibility for delivering the CECRA program, they subcontract out to First Canadian Title for a few key roles. So First Canadian Title, or FCT, will undertake a property title search in corporate searches just to ensure that these are legitimate property owners applying for the CECRA funding on behalf of legitimate commercial properties. And FCT is also responsible for advancing the funds to the landlords, property owners, if their application is approved. So FCT here has a variety of roles intermixed with MCAP in the whole process. So CECRA is applicable to commercial property owners with eligible small business tenants and subtenants. This could be a multi-unit residential properties with commercial tenants or mixed-use properties. Now, it is important to note that only property owner can submit the application. Additionally, only one application must be made per property. So it is very important that the property owner ensures that before submitting the application, they collect all of the necessary information of all their impacted tenants. And the property owner must also meet the following requirements. They must own commercial property occupied by one or more small commercial tenants. They will be responsible for the reduction of the gross rents to no more than 25% for the tenant. They must have rent reduction agreements and a moratorium on eviction for the period of April, May, and June 2020. They also need to declare rental income on their tax return for 2018 and or 2019. It's because the deadline to file tax return for 2019 tax year has been extended. So that's why it's an and or here. So other items the property owner must cover off are that they need to confirm that they have availed themselves for any insurance proceeds and the rental support programs. And the applicant will have to mark down the amount in the application if they receive any from their insurance proceeds, for example, and it will reduce the amount that will be available through CCRA. We have received a few questions about the availability of other government rental support programs. To our knowledge, a direct rental support program are either basically to our knowledge, currently such programs that would apply to property owners or commercial property owners do not exist for the reasons that they either are not direct rental support or they are in the forms of loans that are repayable. But the design of the CCRA is that if the provincial or municipal government decided that they wanted to offer such direct rental support programs, then these programs are expected to supplement the CCRA program. The property owner must confirm prudent cash flow measures for the duration of the 3 month period, and they're required to agree not to seek to recover rent abatement amounts after the program is over, either through significant or disproportionate rent increases. They will provide an attestation signed on their behalf, and in addition, there is requirement for documentation to support their application, which may include the rent rolls if you have more than 5 small tenants in your property, and other documentation, for example. Next slide. How do we define small commercial tenant? So they basically are paying no more than $50,000 in monthly gross rent payments per property. And this will be defined in their lease agreement. They will be generating no more than $20 million in gross annual revenues on a consolidated basis. And as mentioned earlier, the small business tenants will be responsible for up to 25% of the gross rent owed. And they must also continue to be committed to lease term and define the rent reduction agreement. The small business tenant will have to demonstrate a decline in revenue as a result of COVID-19, which is meeting the requirement for the minimum 70% revenue decline for the months of April, May, and June. Some people ask, June is not over yet. How do I know what would be my revenue in June? So this can be averaged over the 3 month period, and you can forecast based on maybe your revenues in April, May, and June in 2019, and compare that to your revenue of the same period of 2020. And the other way is to measure revenue loss is to use an average of your revenue earned in January and February of 2020. So the implication here is if you're a new business and you opened after March 1st, 2020, then you will not be eligible for the CCRA program, just because we will need the historic revenue information for at least January and February 2020 to decide your revenue loss. And the small tenant will also be required to avail yourself of any insurance proceeds and supports provided by other rental support programs. And sometimes tenants may be struggling to even pay their 25% portion of the rent. And then they could check out the other government programs, a lot of information on the Canada's COVID-19 economic response, economic plan webpage on the sorry, that's Canada's COVID-19 Economic Response Plan website. So this is a high-level program process, and we would encourage you to first go to our website for information on the program, where you will also have access to commonly asked questions and information on how to apply. And you will be able to access to the application portal from the CMHC website. And once the property owner applies to the program and submits all required documentation, MCAP will start assessing the application. The current status updates will be provided to the applicant by email and by logging into their account on the portal. And if the application is approved, the funds will be directed to the property owner's business account. It generally takes 2 to 3 business days to disperse the funds to the property owner. So with the current deadline for application intake set on August 31st, the last possible date to advance the funds is September 30th, 2020. But there is a possibility that, or a potential that the August 31st deadline may be extended. So, but as of right now, the intake, the last day to submit your application is August 1st. And if the property owner is 100% compliant with the program, then the entire loan will be forgiven on December 31st, 2020. But what if there's non-compliance? So in the event of non-compliance with the applicable terms and conditions of the program, then the amounts outstanding will immediately become repayable. Now, the setup of the CECRA program is that in the large majority of circumstances, the loan will be forgiven. And that should be the default thinking. And it is only in the event that CMHC and or MCAP become aware of non-compliance with the program, then something will pop up on the applicant's profile. Then the loan will not be forgiven and will become immediately repayable in full. And there are a number of circumstances that could lead to that, and they all reside in the property owner's actions, just simply because only property owner can apply for the CECRA program. So looking at the list here, if the property owner fails to comply with the rent reduction agreement, if they fail to maintain prudent cash flow measures, or seek to recover rent abatement amounts, or apply disproportionate rent increases, or if they misrepresent information provided on any of the requested program documents. And in the event of a default, all necessary measures will be undertaken to recover the outstanding amounts that include collection actions or involve Canada Revenue Agency. So this is a very quick run through of the program, and all details pertaining to CECRA will be accessible on CMHC's COVID CECRA webpage. So as a recap, CMHC is providing forgivable loans to property owners, providing 75% of rent reduction to their small commercial tenants. And the government funding will be capped at 50% of the gross monthly rent payments for the period of April, May, and June 2020. MCAP is administering CECRA on behalf of CMHC and the Government of Canada. And if the property owner complies with the program, the loan will be forgiven. So that concludes the presentation part, and I will stop presenting, and we can open the floor for questions. Let me just move this to the screen.
So thank you very much, Elizabeth. I have a question to start off, and everybody else is welcome to either raise your hand, unmute their mic, or to put it in the chat box. So I am also a tenant in a commercial property, and our landlord has applied and has received funding, received the loan. So we've been given the forgiveness. My question is that we made the assumption that our June revenues were going to be lower. And now, even when I look at averaging over the 3 months, we may not fit the criteria for the month of June, but they've already received the funding for that. So what will be the expectation for us in reimbursing the landlord, or has any thought been put onto that?
I will try my best to address this question, Barb, but I just don't want to pretend that I am the expert. But from what I read from the Q&A, that I assume you have provided an attestation as small business tenant for the application, that you provided that attestation to your landlord, and that because when you submitted your application, there were a lot of unknowns at that period, at that time, and we do recognize that, and we believe people act out of their good faith. So I'm saying that because they indicated that, you know, that the parties, you yourself as tenant, your landlord, act on out of your good faith, and we're not asking that the information you provided as your revenue for June being verified by an auditor. No, that's not the case. But I don't know if I have fully addressed your question, but I'm writing down the question, and I will verify that for the core team. But I remember I heard one question like that. So they said, well, they're not going to like ask an auditor to, I don't know, to verify the information.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions from the group?
I have a question,
Amanda.
kind of. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Axel, and then we'll jump to Amanda after.
Cool. Yeah, further to kind of the averaging of rent over the 3 months, is it that in that averaging, if like the average over the 3 months is a 70% reduction, they will receive the rent reduction for all 3 months? Or is it, if, for example, the business was closed in April and May, and then they opened and didn't have that reduction in June, then would they still, like if it averages, do they still get it for all 3 months, or would they only get it for the 2 months that there was a reduction?
That is for the entire 3 months. The setup of the program is that one application for the entire 3 months period. And if you have no revenue in April and May, but some revenues in June, and you use an average of the 3 months rather than I have 80% of revenue in June compared to June 2019, and then I have 0 for April and May, then no, then you have to average 0 for April, 0 for May, and maybe 80% for June. So the average, I don't know, I'm ballparking, maybe, I don't know, 80 divided by 3, that would be, I don't know, 25%. of your average revenue. So you do experience a significant revenue loss. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome.
So my question is just to go with those other two questions as well. My situation is that I had a 99% loss of revenue from the legal required shutdown, which was from March 17th to May 19th. And then it was business maybe only at a 25% loss. So it's a tricky situation because of June being added in there, and we're able legally and all that to be up and started again. So it's I just feel like we're in a tricky situation. And I was wondering if there was I feel like a lot of people are in this situation as well. I've talked to a lot of small business owners who are restarted back as normal in June. And I was just wondering if there could be any amendment or anything to speak to those people in that situation.
So if you need to qualify for 70% reduction in an average 70% revenue loss over the 3 months, you pretty much, even in June, you have to bounce back to basically business as normal, or even 120% of revenue, which is very unlikely to happen, right, in this situation.
Okay.
So in your situation, Amanda, you closed for the entire month of April and May, and you had 0 revenues, right? But even if you have some revenues in June, but you average out over the 3 months, you will very likely to still qualify for the 70% decline in revenue.
Okay, I must have did my calculations wrong because it didn't seem like it. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you are very welcome. So on the website, the COVID CCRA website, there are a list of frequently asked questions. Even if you go to the portal, and there's a link that will bring you to the portal, and at the bottom, there's a small icon that says FAQ, and you can look into that. And these are very, very commonly asked questions. And I'm now thinking about some other commonly asked questions, like I think in the poll, some people indicated that they are in the health industry, health services. So if that is in a hospital, for example, many people ask, what if I'm a government-owned business, do I qualify? The design of CCRA is if you are a provincial or a municipal corporation, then CCRA doesn't apply to you. The idea is provincial government or municipal government may autonomously just waive the rent or grant a rent reduction. But we do recognize sometimes, there are other situations. A typical example is a pension fund, right? This is a vehicle by the government. So what we are looking at is whether the government has the controlling stake in the business. If not, then the business will, or the property owner will be eligible to apply for CCRA. So that may apply to hospitals, schools, and airport, for example. So these are some questions I thought many people asked about.
Okay. Thank you.
You are welcome.
There's a question in the chat box about how do tenants access their part of the application?
So basically, tenants will not be able to submit the application, and only property owners can submit the applications. And but from some other sessions or other channels, we heard a common question is small business tenants ask what options they have if for whatever reasons their landlord decided not to go for CCRA, even if they have small tenants, small business tenants, qualify for the eligibility. So what we would encourage them to do is there are some resources on the webpage basically describe, your landlord's success rely on their small business tenants' success. So there is a relationship there. And if, their small business tenants cannot sustain their day-to-day operation and have eventually moved out of the properties, then that's going to cost the landlord more, right? So maybe encourage them to look at, the benefits of CECRA and encourage them or to work with the small business tenants to go through the process.
Okay. And I'll add to that one, Jara, our landlord actually did their part of the application and just forwarded us any information that we were required to provide. They just asked us for that information and had us fill in the attestation form and things like that. So they just emailed us what our part of the application was, and we filled it out and dropped it back with them, and they submitted the application.
Yeah, that is supposed to be the process because, well, for some are large properties, for example, if it's a shopping mall, you may have business tenants which may not qualify for the definition of small business tenants. They may have their gross annual revenue above $20 million, especially in a franchising situation. But there can also be much smaller business tenants which may qualify for the CECRA program. So that's why it's important for them to, for the landlord to collect all the information for all impacted small business tenants. The other situation is some landlords would think I need to collect all the necessary documentation and start the process. So what we encourage them to do is maybe create an account first, and then you can then take the time to collect all the necessary information and the documentation, and then you submit as a second step through the portal to the MCAP.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for providing us with that information. And we have your contact information, so if there's any questions that come up after today's session, then feel free to let us know, and we'll make sure to try to get the answers for you. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with you. As you said, you have my contact information, and please do use me as a channel for information, for questions. As I said, I will definitely verify the answers before getting back to you. And if you are applying, really, really good luck, and good luck with your business.